Hi, I'm Nate Seberg, and this is One Day Ahead. Welcome to One Day Ahead, The Lord of the Flies, Chapter 2. In this web series for teachers and students staying a day ahead of the class, we dive into a summary and analysis of William Golding's 1954 classic. If you're teaching this material, check out my Lord of the Flies unit. It's got everything you need, link below. As ever, these are not spoiler-free videos, so fair warning. But if you're good to go, then climb the mountain, grab some kindling, and don't look too hard for that birthmark, kid, because it's time to jump into Chapter 2, Fire on the Mountain. Chapter 2 opens with a second meeting of all the boys on the beach, with Ralph holding the symbol of law, order, democracy, and civilization, the conch shell. At first, he looks to Piggy in something like desperation, but then, all at once, he found he could talk fluently. He holds the floor for like 11 seconds before Jack jumps in with the terribly exciting story about the pig caught in the creepers and how it got away and how he wanted to kill it and how he would have killed it but how he didn't kill it but how he will kill it next time for sure. Then he underlines his point when he slammed his knife into a trunk and looked around challengingly. Jack. We get it. Next, they make a rule that during the meeting, you can only speak if you are holding the shell. It works about as well as you'd think. At the meeting, they decide to make the best of their situation until they are rescued, and most of the boys find being marooned terribly exciting and adventurous, with one notable exception. A slight child, about 6 years old, is prodded forward by his peers. He is small for his age and has a large birthmark on his face. He has something to say, but he is so mortified by the attention that he can't speak. It's Piggy who kneels beside him and translates for the kid. He wants to know what you're going to do about the snake thing. Ralph laughed, and the other boys laughed with him. The small boy twisted further into himself. Now he says it's a beastie. Beastie? A snake thing, ever so big. He saw it. Ralph spends the next page trying to reassure the younger children that there is no beast, and then Jack offers his contribution. Ralph's right, of course. There isn't a snake thing. But if there was a snake, we'd hunt and kill it. We're gonna hunt pigs, and we'll look for the snake too. But there isn't a snake. We'll make sure when we go hunting. Jack. Not helpful. The meeting comes to an abrupt end when Ralph suggests they build a signal fire on top of the mountain in hopes that it will flag a passing ship. Utterly delighted with this idea and led by Jack, the boys dash off to climb the mountain. In the clearing on the peak, they light a bonfire using Piggy's glasses to focus the sunlight. The fire burns hot and fast with very little smoke. In fact, it's too fast for the kids to keep up, and eventually they let it die down. In the lull following the excitement of the fire, they decide that wherever the shell is, they can have an official meeting, and that the hunters are henceforth responsible for keeping a nice, smoky signal fire burning all day. While they are talking, Piggy notices that the fire that was burning down has actually gotten out of control, noting sardonically, "You got your small fire all right." The boys discover they have inadvertently lit fully half of the mountain on fire. While it burns, Piggy launches into a tirade. He's irate, upbraiding the kids basically for behaving like a pack of unsupervised kids. His critiques are relentless and far-ranging, but they end when he gets to the fact that he has been unable to even count the small children, who he calls little uns, because they won't stay still. And this line of thought leads somewhere disturbing. While watching the hillside in flames, he continues, "And the little uns was wandering about down there where the fire is. How do you know they aren't still there?" Something strange was happening to Piggy, for he was gasping for breath. "The little un," gasped Piggy. "Him with the mark on his face. I don't see him. Where is he now?" The crowd was silent as death. "Him that talked about the snakes. He was down there." A tree exploded like a firebomb. Tall swaths of creepers rose for a moment into view, agonized, and went down again. The little boy screamed at them. "Snakes, snakes. Look at the snakes." And that's chapter 2. So each chapter, we are going to explore the themes and characters by going just a step or two beyond what's on the page. This is Deep Dive Quotes. So first up, during the meeting that opens the chapter, we get these lines. "And while we are waiting, we can have a good time in this island." He gesticulated widely. It's like in a book. "At once there was a clamor, 'Treasure Island, swallows and Amazons, Coral Island.'" So Golding's call out of Coral Island is no accident. Written in 1858, it is another shipwrecked, marooned on a desert island, gotta try to not die, keep living type book. It was hugely popular in England, and it clearly had a big influence on Golding. So big, in fact, that he would put the words coral and island next to each other 3 times during the text. Still not convinced? The 3 English boys stuck on the Coral Island are Ralph, Jack, and Peter, which either could be Piggy, or if you go all biblical on me, disciple Peter, his original name before he met Jesus was Simon. Anyway, I'm no English teacher, but I think Golding might be trying to tell us something here. So what is it? Well, the Lord of the Flies and Coral Island are similar only in the broadest strokes. In Coral Island, the boys must confront and defeat forces of evil like pirates and native cannibals. They do that through a combination of good sense, courage, proper British upbringing, work ethic, I'm assuming bad teeth, and most importantly, good Christian values. However, the obvious differences in plot is not the only place where these 2 stories diverge, because critically, the evil in Coral Island is external. The boys are virtuous and noble, and they defeat the evil they encounter by leaning into those virtues. Contrast that with Lord of the Flies, where the boys themselves are the evil. So why was Coral Island written with this basic premise in mind, and why did Golding see fit to obviously allude to the text and then blow it right to hell by making the boys themselves evil? Understanding that takes us to our next quote, this one from the second meeting. They're laying down some more ground rules, and Jack takes the shell to speak. I agree with Ralph. We've got to have rules and obey them. After all, we're not savages. We're English, and the English are best at everything. English exceptionalism. I mean, there's your answer. Coral Island comes straight out of the Victorian era, a time in history where things got real imperialistic for the Brits. They expanded their empire all over the world. At its height, roughly 25% of the world's landmass was under British rule. You've probably heard that in this era, the sun never set on the British Empire. They did this, first of all, because they could. But more importantly for our purposes, they also did it because they believed they should. In preparing for this episode, I visited the Victorian era Wikipedia page, and the final line of the top paragraph, after explaining just how big and dominant the empire got, the article reads simply, "National self-confidence peaked." You're damn right it did. To the Brits in this time, and this might be simplifying a bit, but not only was colonization and ruling a foreign people not morally fraught, in fact, many of their leading thinkers believed it would be wrong not to rule these people. So definitely it was about riches and trade and conquest, and national pride played a huge role, but it's important to understand that they thought of British rule as a gift, that leaving the people of wherever alone was akin to leaving them in darkness, forsaking them to continue in their heathen ways. I probably don't need to tell you that this line of thinking, exemplified here through Coral Island, is problematic. And Golding set out to show us how. He took the average British schoolboy, something his readers could easily understand, and he threw English exceptionalism right out the window when he made them the savages. He took the most pedestrian of figures, like a bunch of them are in a children's choir, for God's sakes, and he used their corruption to show that the assumption that his countrymen had that they are in some way separate from the rest of humanity is just ridiculous. And that's chapter 2. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, check out my teaching unit and my other stuff. Next time, we turn to chapter 3, where Jack handles pig poop, Ralph builds a hut, and Simon is nice to little children, which virtually guarantees he's gonna die. All that and more next time on One Day Ahead.